Welcome back to the Taproom Exclusive here at Collision Bend. I am with Luke Purcell and Ben Northeim, brewers for Collision Bend. We are on to the C-Town IPA. Finally an IPA. No, I love IPAs. This is another one you guys just released in cans along with the Hope Flows Kolsch style. Talk a little bit about the beer, about the name.
Yeah, this one is also joining our year-round lineup in cans and draft as well. So come down to the pub and try it out, or pick it up at all the places we distribute to. The name C-Town, naming beer is always a challenge for us because every name you can possibly
I think for most brewers will agree with that. Yeah,
every name you come up with, someone's already taken it. So I was just doing a search for nicknames for Cleveland. I really wanted to name it something after that, and I was like, C-Town was like one of the first ones that pop up. And I'm like, there's probably a million beers named C-Town. I searched for it everywhere, searched on Tap, searched Google, and nothing came back. And I was like, well, we got it. Here we are.
It's funny because like there are times where I've come up with like a name and I'm like, oh, that'd be maybe a cool name for a beer, and I do that search, and it's like, oh well, that's
50 other people had that idea
already taken. I'm not original at all.
Yeah.
But it's like I couldn't believe Goldhorn's Dead Man's Curve.
Right.
Yeah.
Like, how did no one take Dead Man's Curve before 2016?
Yeah. Sometimes you just, I don't know. Sometimes the rest of us miss it, and then those are the ones where all the rest of us we look at like, oh man, how do we,
I was right there. That was one of that in C-Town are both like two that I'm really shocked weren't taken before very recently.
Yeah, absolutely. I agree. It's funny. Sometimes it just doesn't occur, or I don't know. Or maybe someone thought of it and it was like, that one's going to be taken, and they didn't take the time to look it up. Who knows?
Did you already have the brew before the name, or was this one that
that's a whole other story. Yeah.
This beer has been a work in progress since we opened, essentially, without going into too much detail with it. But yeah, I've been slowly tweaking that recipe for almost 2 years now, and I think I say that now, but next week I'll want to change it again.
Right,
so,
you'll find
but
something.
yeah, I think we finally got it dialed into where it's where the profile's kind of locked into where we want what we're looking for.
As like the market dictates a lot what we do, and IPAs, like we all know, is just the most popular style in the craft beer segment. So we've done a lot of different IPAs, and then some of the ideas from those and hop blends have merged into become this. Since we were canning it, we really worked on it in the last few months, I think, to finalize and get one down that we could keep consistent. Because when you're in a brew pub setting, it's like you could change your IPA all the time and people are happy about it.
Right.
When you start selling it at retail, it's a little bit different of a game, and when people go to it, they're not just going to it because the can looks cool. Right. It might be the first time they buy it. Right. It might be the reason. But they're looking for a consistent product. So we really ramped it up we actually a couple weeks ago had the final version of this beer on tap as well as the other version of this. So it came down to the final two. So there's two IPAs that were very close to each other. Just a little hop blend was different. And, that's just one of those things you have to do to get it right. And we're pleased with it. So.
Yeah, it's a great IPA, bright, juicy, not juicy like in New England, but It's got more of that citrus, bright hoppiness. Talk a little bit about the profile on it.
I didn't want to make a New England, and I didn't want to make a West Coast IPA, so I wanted that balance of the malt sweet and the bitter from the hops. So it took a long time, but I really love the taste of Centennial and Simcoe hops together. I think that's one of my favorite combinations. Even back as a home brewer, I found that was a great combination. So there's not a lot in the malt bill, just a little bit of specialty malt here and there, just to bring in some more flavor and to smooth out that malt flavor. But it's all Centennial and Simcoe hops, which are fantastic in my mind.
Yeah, it does a very good job blending together in this beer, especially. What's some of your favorite ingredients to play with as brewers?
I think every brewer's answer is probably going to be hops.
Yeah, hops.
It's
the varieties of hops that keep coming out. Every year there's new ones. They're just splicing and scientific side of the growing is happening, and then the results of that are different things that we can try. And so many different flavors are coming out of some of these hops now. So, for that being said, I think we know our grains pretty well, you know. And every once in a while, some innovation comes along, and that not quite as often as these new hops have been, but every once in a while, something comes along innovation-wise. I used this red malt recently that was it doesn't give you as much of the kind of cloying like sweetness that some of the crystal malts and stuff like that do, but it gives you this deep red color. So we liked that. We liked playing around with that a little bit on a couple beers. But I see the present and future also of yeast strains. That's been something that's been growing and almost catching up to how fast the different hop varieties are coming out. And there's a lot of flavor to be found in different yeasts and different temperatures of fermentation and things like that I think is probably like the next frontier.
Okay. A friend of mine, he was talking to me, he's a scientist, does all the molecular stuff, yeast stuff, and he was telling me it seems like everybody's got a hop farm now. Everybody's growing hops, you can get it anywhere. But you don't see like localized yeast strains as much. And he's like,
that's exactly what I'm talking about.
He's like, yeah, and he's talking about like he wants to get into the yeast game as a scientist. And I was like, yes, do that. I'm telling him, please do that. That would be really cool. I think it'd be a really cool thing for you guys to start playing with, not just specifically Collision. I just meant brewers to play with.
I'm sorry.
Sure. No,
especially
you're fine.
Someone on our scale size, like how much we're brewing at a time, we can afford to play with that stuff. Whereas some of these bigger guys in town, the production breweries, don't have that luxury of doing that because that's a lot of beer to make at one time, and you don't know how it's going to turn out. So we have the ability to do smaller batches and really play around with that stuff. So
yeah, I think like you were saying, Luke, I think that's going to be really cool to see how that proceeds in the next 5 years even.
Well, so with close to 7,000. I keep saying 6,000 every talk I give throughout this past year, but I guess now apparently we're closing in on 7,000 breweries in the country. So if you think about that, the craft beer industry is very important to their whatever state those breweries are in now, and very important for employment, you know, and lots of other things. And it's becoming, that side of it is becoming agricultural as well. We're getting hops grown, like you said. There's hop farms everywhere now, at least in our line of around. So we have the Midwest as a nice hop growing region, and it was discovered that it was recently, and it's becoming more and more and more. And we're getting some grains that are being grown here, and maltsters in town and things like that. So you're getting all this local, and people are saying, well, I have an all Ohio brew, but I don't know that anyone's used Ohio, you know, produced yeast. Like maybe it's produced here, or maybe, you know, the company might be here, but have they actually like pulled yeast from here? You know, like there's the real Ohio beer is going to be when someone does wild fermentation or something, you know, or like specific wild fermentation that someone like your friend has pulled off of a dandelion or something like that, and like this really throws off these flavors, and you know that is beyond my world, but I will certainly buy that from him.
Yeah, that kind of stuff goes way over my head. I can't even fathom that stuff. And I was telling Ben, you know, the stuff that you guys do, the patience that it takes is insane, and I don't have that. So
well, we fill our time nicely. Ben brought his smoker down. We make ourselves lunch every day, so it's nice. It's not a bad life.
Oh, you can't complain at that point, man. I mean, that's beer, smoking food. Come on, like that's the life. So what with the IPA market now, like it's insane how much it's grown. I mean, it's a huge part of the market. Beyond the yeast stuff, what do you see? Do you see brutes coming as being a full-time thing, or more of like the bubble's gonna burst on that?
I don't see that hitting as much as the New England. I mean, the brute's a great style. We brewed one here, and I enjoy that one more so than the New England's, only because I appreciate a dry beer personally. But yeah, I don't see that one sticking around as much, maybe. Yeah. But you never know.
And I
6 months from now, we could be
right. You know,
totally
it could be
different
100% brute market. But it's nice to see something like what you guys have done with C-Town, where you were saying how that mix of it's giving you best of both worlds in the New England and the West Coast. I like both styles. I like brutes too, but there's something about that nice bite of a West Coast, but the smoothness of the New England. You guys really knocked it out with
thank you.
With this one.
I would almost there's one thing I think is pretty cool, and if in talks I used to do, maybe even just a few years ago, I would talk about the American Pale Ale style this way, because I found myself going, oh, this is a traditional American Pale Ale, or this is just your classic American Pale Ale, and I was like, wow, that's really cool that our industry, the American craft brew industry, has come that far where we have those. We have those things. It's not a new thing anymore, and it made me realize, generations that are starting to drink beer right now this is normal to them. This wasn't normal to me when these IPAs were coming out for the first time, and now I'm finding myself saying that about IPAs. And this one I would almost say that this is a classic American IPA, with the hop blend that Ben finally settled on after 25 tries.
Practice makes perfect.
Yeah, right. And I think that both of those are pretty, they've been around for a while, and the way they work together gives you that citrusy, kind of traditional, the way we're used to having American IPAs nowadays, but it gives you some other elements in there, and the balance in there is definitely almost a throwback to it's not a brute, and it's not all hops, and that's all you smell or taste, and that's what I love about this beer.
Yeah, it's all around just a very well balanced brew. Nothing's overpowering anything else. And sometimes that happens with IPAs, especially. The hops can dominate too much.
Yes.
And you don't want that. That's I like hops, but man, there's times where I'm just like, ugh, that's a little much. But this leaves you makes you want another drink. Thirsts you for another drink. I can't talk today.
There's nothing more I love about a beer that makes me want to have more than one of them. It's fun to try things that are over the top and stuff like that. But if I can sit down and drink 2 or 3 pints of them, then that's a good beer in my opinion. Yeah,
this is something I can, out of a 6-pack, I can have 2 or 3 of, not feel like I'm gonna have to.
Yeah,
have to
and we're choosing these things. That's why we choose this one for package. We still love playing around and overdoing it, which is what some people want. We still love doing that, and that's why we have a smaller tank that we can play around with a little bit and do some things that are a little bit, and that's not the one we're going to end up putting in a can, because again, it goes back to that consistency that I'm talking about, and I love that you said it leaves you thirsting for another beer, because I think I've said that's probably a pretty good idea when you're a brewer, to brew things that people want more of.
One and done, please.
Yeah, but there are beers like that like Ben said, we like to, we love those beers, and I love to pick up a glass of some super crazy IPA where it's felt like I just dove into the hop pelletizer or something, right. And then usually about halfway through that one, hopefully I had a taster glass, because I don't want much more of it. So that's where we're at with that. But we like those just as much as anybody, but
you gotta go for consistency, and that's a really good point that you were making both this week and last week, is that the fact that people are looking for that consistency in a product on a shelf versus coming into a brewery where you can experiment, and that's the whole point. I was talking to a guy the other night. He didn't understand why breweries don't just release everything to a grocery store. I was like, well, then they wouldn't.
You have to be really careful.
You have to go. They want you to go there.
Yeah.
To go there. If you can get it all at a grocery store, you're not going to go there. Right. And so I had to tell him, a little newer to the beer industry and stuff, but it's fun educating people and kind of because now there's stuff that you have to go down there to try, and it forces you to go down there, and it's going to put you out of your comfort zone, get you to try things that you might not have ever tried. And that's what my whole thing is. I like Doppelbocks. We're going to get into one next week. I don't think I would normally have tried one had I not gone to a brewery and tried it. And it's really cool to come down to the place and visit.
That's why samplers are always flights and samplers are always brew pub's number one selling item, I think, because of that reason.
Yeah.
People want to come down and try everything you're doing and try new things. Some people don't, so that's why we
Right.
make the consistent one, and it's always on. And you can always come down here and get our Lake Erie Sunset if that's what you like. But a lot of people do. We sell more flights than anything, right?
Yeah. I bet the Destination Cleveland Passport thing's only just helped you guys a ton
absolutely.
with
That's been
getting
great.
people down here.
Yeah.
Gets
That's
people excited to get to new breweries
Right?
and try stuff.
Yeah, we had a lot of people we've talked to in the pub that have come down just because they had that, and they're like, "We didn't even know you were down here. We didn't." And some of them, I love this part. We didn't even know there was anything in the flats. Like I think you said in the first week you were here, it was like, yeah, there was nothing down in the flats, but it
Yeah.
has changed in the last few years here. So
there's so much cool stuff down here. Anything about the C-Town that I might have forgotten to touch on that you wanted to get out before we head out?
I think
we're
pretty
good.
well on that one.
Awesome, absolutely. Thank you guys for your time. Tune in next week for the Collision Bend Grand Finale.